Earlier today, I reported to you all about a story that I find very interesting. It's not a story that's a big deal here in America, but it's one of the biggest news stories going on right now in New Zealand. But apparently, a guy by the name of Thomas Phillips and his 3 kids, they all went missing 3 years ago. And as the months and the years passed, people started fearing the worst. People thought that they would never see these 3 kids or Thomas himself again until Thomas started getting caught on security cameras out shopping for goods and out committing crimes with what appears to be his kids. I kid you not, it looks as if Thomas and his 11-year-old daughter both robbed a bank. So really wild stuff going on. And recently, Thomas and his 3 kids were actually caught on video hiking through the wilderness. Some hunters were out there hunting pig and boar or whatever, and they actually came across Thomas and his family. So apparently they've been living off-grid in the wilderness for 3 years. Now, one thing everyone points out automatically when they see Thomas is that he has a huge head. And I think a lot of you would be amused by the fact that even in New Zealand, some people refer to him as Megamind. But anyways, that really doesn't have much to do with anything. A lot of people have been asking, though, how are they surviving? Because, yeah, living off the land, it sounds good, but how feasible is it in 2024? And in some of the environments where they are supposedly living, these can be harsh environments. You got rain, you got weather, you got freezing temperatures at, certain points of time in the night. So people have been wondering, like, is anyone helping them? Have they made a makeshift shelter? And you got to understand, folks, that law enforcement and search teams have been searching for them for 3 years. And every time there's an alleged sighting, they start searching again. They're even flying over the woods with, thermal tech and stuff, trying to find these people. They cannot find them for anything, but people keep running across them somehow. So people have been wondering, how are they surviving out there? And people have suggested that they think that Thomas has a support system. And now local law enforcement has come out and they said that some of the locals view Thomas as like a Robin Hood-like figure. And they actually agree with everything that he's doing, because one thing that I didn't know that I know now is that Thomas actually has custody over these kids. So I guess if he wants to raise them in the wild, he can, even though it's dangerous. And I don't necessarily agree with it. But once you get to the point that you're robbing banks with your 11-year-old daughter, I think that's when that's taking things a little too far. But I want to go ahead and dive into this article because we find out a little more information about what's going on here and about how Thomas and his kids must be surviving through this, I don't know, a system of people in the area that seem to be helping. So let's go ahead and dive right in, shall we? Now, as I reported to you all in the last video, it was about a week or so ago that some people who were out hunting actually caught Thomas and his family on video. At first, they believed them to be poachers. The 16-year-old filmed them on his phone, and then he challenged them. One of the foursome, a girl, her face covered with a mask, replied to him. He asked her, "Hey, this is private property, you know that, right?" And she was like, "Yeah, duh," the boy recalled. Then I asked, "Does anyone know you're here?" And she said, "No, just you guys." It was only when the teenager sent the video to his grandfather that he discovered the true significance of that exchange. Namely, that he had just crossed paths with New Zealand's most famous fugitive family, Tom Phillips and his 3 children, Jada, 11, Maverick, 9, and Ember, age 8. Theirs is a story that has gripped the nation for the past 3 years. The sighting last week was the first time all three kids have been seen since they disappeared in late 2021. Since then, 38-year-old Phillips has played a game of cat and mouse with the increasingly embarrassed authorities in the area. While on the run, the experienced hunter and outdoorsman has been captured on CCTV a number of times, including while allegedly taking part in the armed holdup of a bank in May of last year. He and a second, smaller female individual fled the scene on a black motorbike. But despite posting a reward this summer, police are no nearer to tracking the Phillips family down than they were before, not even after the latest close encounter. Although officers were alerted soon after the sighting, scrambled a helicopter with heat-seeking cameras, no trace was found, with the hunt called off after 3 days. The continued failure to find them has seen police face growing criticism. Some have called for indigenous trackers or even special forces to hunt them down. Others have called for Phillips to be offered an amnesty from prosecution. At the same time, suspicion is mounting as to the level of support he must be receiving from misguided sympathizers, some of whom see him as a hero, battling against the authorities to raise his children as he sees fit. What I think has been happening is that Tom has a little bit of a network of people who think he's Robin Hood, said private investigator Chris Budge. Budge, a former military policeman, has visited the area on his own initiative over a half a dozen times and spent more than 2 weeks in the bush searching for the family using thermal imaging equipment. The girls are now headed into their teenage years, and they are going to need stuff, he says. I don't believe that's going to be all happening in the bush. I don't think he's just a kidnapper, but I think he has taken his kids because he wants to keep hold of them, and there's probably a bit of Stockholm syndrome, a bit of brainwashing, where he is telling them, if we go back, you'll be taken away from me, and I'll never see you again. Budge adds, I think the only 2 or 3 ways that it will end is if someone is in trouble with the police and they use their knowledge of Phillips as a bargaining chip, or secondly, they get accidentally seen like they have been last week, or thirdly, one of the kids gets sick. I don't think Tom would let his kids get sick and just die. Speaking this week, however, the children's mother, Kat, said she has little faith left in the authorities and now feels that finding her 3 missing kids is out of the police's league. It was like Christmas come early, and I really thought they would be coming home this time, she said. It's a confirmed sighting, and yet nothing has come of it. She speculated that her daughter's interaction with the pig hunters may have been her trying to get a message out to the public. Is that a cry for help? Kat said. Does anybody know that we're here? Is anyone coming for us? We don't get to hear the tone of her voice, but to me, that's what I think. It's like she's trying to say something without actually saying something because her father is right there, and she's worried if she says the wrong thing and words it the wrong way, there will be repercussions later. As for the support Phillips may be getting from the rural community, where his family has lived and farmed for generations, Kat pulls no punches. 100% somebody is helping them. Somebody is supplying them, or just inadvertently leaving things in an accessible place, she said. My babies deserve better. It's beyond time that they come home, and supporting Thomas is essentially supporting child abuse, because that's what it is. There's no beating around the bush here. None of this is okay. Those people helping him need to stop. They need to think seriously about it, and they need to question themselves. Why do these kids deserve any less than any other child in New Zealand? Max Baxter, the mayor of Otorohanga, where Phillips owns a house, says that there has been a lot of talk lately. He felt that his personal protection of the children was paramount, and that the result was that he was opening them up to experience that kids nowadays don't get. He's teaching them to be bushmen. But as the months passed, few truly believed that the family could be living off the land by themselves. Not least because, as the children's mother has pointed out, her daughter Ember suffers badly from asthma. She needs a prescription, and you need a prescription to get inhalers. So either Tom is neglecting her health or somebody's giving him inhalers, Kat said. In May of last year, Phillips seemed to have roared back into sight on a stolen motorcycle when he and a female accomplice allegedly held up a bank at gunpoint. The incident was witnessed by a local resident who told the Otago Daily Times how she had seen two people rushing out of the ANZ bank in a hurry, dropping wads of cash as they went. Both were dressed in all black and wearing motorcycle helmets. There were heaps of $50 notes falling on the ground, she said. Thinking they had dropped the money by mistake, she stopped one of them, the smaller female, and offered to help her pick up the money. It was only then that she saw both were armed. At that moment, the owner of a nearby supermarket tackled the man to the ground. There was confusion, and it was alleged the man said, "Fire the gun." Shots then rang out, but no one was hit. As the supermarket owner backed off, the duo ran off to a car park where their getaway motorbike was waiting. The robbery happened on May 16th, but police only revealed in September that they believed Phillips was responsible and that they had charged him with aggravated robbery, aggravated wounding, and unlawfully possessing a firearm. They reiterated their view that Phillips had been receiving help to stay hidden and urged people to rethink their support for him in light of the new warrant for his arrest. Police did not identify the female involved in the robbery. That summer, Phillips was also spotted at a supermarket wearing a medical face mask. He drove away in a stolen Toyota Hilux. In November, he was again caught in CCTV, also accompanied by a child, trying to smash his way into a store. When an alarm sounded, they fled on a stolen quad bike. A local mayor by the name of John Robertson says, "Look for him to be out there with the children for this long. One has to assume that he is getting help somewhere along the line." Within the community, there is a whole range of views on this. Some probably support Tom, and some think his judgment is really bad. It is a point taken up by the children's mother. "My babies deserve better," she says. "It is beyond time that they come home, and realistically, if Maricopa wants to keep Thomas, they can keep Thomas. I just want my babies home. That's all I want. They can have him. I don't really care. I don't really care at all if the police get him. That's not my issue. That's not my problem. My problem is that my babies are gone. My problem is that people are helping and they need to stop. Those people need to stop. They are just innocent children, and they should not be where they are right now." In her attempt to cope with the loss of her kids, she says she tries to pretend that they aren't still missing. She has two other daughters who are older than the three, who are with their father, but admits she feels lost. "Since they've been gone, I've lost my way. I'm not me. They were my world. They were my everything. I feel like I didn't fight hard enough. I didn't make enough noise. I feel like it's my fault." Reflecting on their relationship, Kat described that her husband had been extremely controlling. She claims he did not like her going anywhere or doing anything on her own and did not want her to put their children in childcare. She added that she was worried how the ordeal would affect them in a long term. They have got their whole lives ahead of them, and it's already destroyed, she said. It is going to take them years to, gain any semblance of normality, regardless of how we proceed from here, because so much damage has been done, and it takes a long time to undo that damage. Nobody should have to go through any part of this. None of it is right. I don't even know what they look like now. They will be so big. They would have changed. I just love my babies. I love them so much. They are my life. For all that given Phillips' obvious skill at evading capture, it's hard to predict when she will see them next. Now, she says that these kids, It's going to take years for these kids to get better whenever they do come back to a sense of normality. And that's where I'll kind of disagree here. Don't get me wrong. I don't agree with what Thomas is doing. Obviously, no one in their right mind is going to agree with the father disappearing in the woods with his kids for years and robbing banks, right? But at the same time, I would argue that these kids will probably make it out of this situation better off than most kids out there. Because these kids aren't being brainwashed by the television. They're not being indoctrinated by their iPads. They're not worried about video games and what have you. They're actually out there learning to live off the land. So if anything, yeah, I guess they might not know the latest jokes that the kids are cracking. They probably haven't seen the latest Mr. Beast YouTube video. But they are probably learning some life skills that most kids don't ever learn. Most people never learn, let alone people at that age. Now, I'm not saying it's okay. All I'm saying is I'm not so pessimistic about how these kids will get out of the situation. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think these kids are... It's not the worst thing that could happen to a bunch of kids. Going on a 3-year long adventure in the woods, you know, kind of away from society. Now, like I said, I don't agree with it, but I think that we have more damaged kids here, you know, in the regular world as opposed to them. I bet you these kids aren't depressed about their Instagram likes. You know what I mean? Like, there's so much going on in today's society. And kids are being affected psychologically, emotionally, and physically. And in many ways, these kids aren't going through that. These kids aren't going through the mind poisoning that a lot of other kids are going through right now. So if anything, you know, I want these kids to be brought to safety. I want these kids to come home. But if anything, they're probably better off than the majority of the kids out here these days, who are all depressed, all confused, all angry and weird. But I can guarantee you at the very least, they're learning more out there than they would learn in school. Now, of course, they're probably learning to steal cars and rob banks, which is not good, but you get what I'm saying, right? But anyways, they're talking about this, you know, network of people who are probably helping him out. And I agree, that's probably happening. But I'm wondering, how has he managed to evade law enforcement for this long? It's one thing if he's never been seen. But this dude has been spotted shopping at the grocery store. He's had to have stolen at least 2 motorcycles and a car by now. He broke into, or him and his kid tried to break into a store. They robbed a freaking bank. And I'm wondering, how is he getting away with all of this? And, you know, I think about, like, law enforcement here in America, and I feel like they would have caught Thomas a long time ago. But yet, somehow, Thomas keeps managing to get away. So my question would be, hey, okay, we know he's probably working with a network that's helping him out. Is there any law enforcement officers who are helping him out? Are there law enforcement officers who are sympathetic towards his cause of raising his kids in the wilderness? You know what I mean? Because I feel like there has to be something missing here. Something tells me that there's something missing to this story. Because if you're living off the land, it's cheaper than, of course, renting an apartment or having a home. If you're living off the land, you don't need that much money. And if you got this support system supplying you with food and necessities, then why do you need to be out here robbing banks? Like, think about it. If you're living in the woods, why rob a bank? What are you going to really use this money for? You can't even really go out there into society like a normal person, right? So something about that doesn't add up. Something about the crimes he's been accused of, it does not add up to me. I think there's something missing here. I don't know what it is. Maybe I'm wrong, right? Because obviously the guy's capable of making some irrational decisions and doing things that are kind of drastic, kind of extreme, which is why I think another reason the law enforcement is kind of hesitant to take this guy down is because obviously he's gone full Rambo. Okay? They're probably scared of going out there in the bush and trying to find him. He may have booby traps set up. At the very least, I don't think he's going to go down without a fight. Now, maybe he will because his love for his kids won't allow him to go out in a blaze of glory. But if you look at all of his other actions, if you look at what he's capable of, then I would assume that he's going to go down with he's going to go down fighting. He's going to go down fighting because you have to understand now, in the 3 years that he's been missing, he's been accused of all of these crimes that will send him to jail for years. So now, if he ever does reemerge, they're taking the kids away and they're locking them up. So obviously he doesn't want to get found. And he knows what's going to happen if he is found. So I would argue that he'd probably be willing to hurt someone, kill someone, you name it, if it came to, him getting brought in or not. So even people who are out in the wilderness who may run across him, I would say you better be careful because there's no telling what this guy is capable of. But hopefully we'll be hearing more about this story soon. For now, let me know your thoughts about it down in the comments below. While you're down there, hit that thumbs up, hit that subscribe, ring that notification bell, and I'll talk to you all very soon in the next one.